إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلن تجد له وليا مرشدا أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله صفي من خلقه وحبيبه والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين محمد مصطفى وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين. We've just heard the lecture on Salahuddin Ayyubi, brothers. And 20 years before Salahuddin Ayyubi, 20 years before he recaptured Jerusalem from the hands of the Crusaders, a terrible man was born in Mongolia. His name was Genghis Khan. Okay, Genghis Khan, in 1167 he was born. And the Islamic State, or the situation of the Muslims at that time, was, similar to what it is today, really, in terms of that Muslims were split up into many different states. There was not one large Khilafah ruling the Muslim world. So, for example, Iran and Khurasan was run by Muslims, the Khawarizmi tribe. Sindh, Pakistan and Afghanistan was run by Muslims called the Ghawriyah. Sham, i.e. Syria and Palestine, was run by the Ayyubiyah. Iraq was ruled by the Abbasi. And Turkmenistan and Georgia was ruled by As-Salajiqa. These were the main states that were around at the time. Also at this time, bid'ah had spread through extreme Sufi groups, was very prevalent amongst the Muslims. The Mongols under Genghis Khan began their campaign of terror. And by 1216, Genghis Khan had conquered Korea, Mongolia, China and Tibet. And then he started to look towards the Muslim lands. And by 1219, the Khawarizmi, they were defeated, Iran and Khurasan. Then 1231 to 1242, Afghanistan, Georgia, Armenia, all these states, they were annexed and taken over by the Mongol horde. And what would happen is every single person would be terrified. And all the Muslim states in this situation, they submitted themselves to the Mongols. They didn't put up any resistance or they didn't retaliate. Rather, they would invite them in, say, look, take over our country and don't cause a bloodshed. And so jihad was non-existent in the mind of the Muslims of these states. Now the Mongols, they became more and more brave until eventually they decided they were going to destroy the seat of the Islamic Khilafah, which was Baghdad. By the time the Mongols had reached Baghdad, the leader of the Mongols was a man called, in Arabic he's known as Huluku, and in English they call him Hulagu. Okay, Hulagu was his name. And he started to look towards Iraq. At the time, Iraq and Baghdad, we said the Abbasis, they were in power. And really, it was the end of the Abbasis, the end of their reign. And a lot of bid'ah and a lot of amusements and pleasures of the world is what the Abbasis were concentrating on. Music and dancing girls and all these kind of things. Now, the Khalif, Musta'sim, he was taking advice from a Rafidi, from a Shi'i man called Ibn al-Alqami. Ibn al-Alqami. And Ibn al-Alqami, he was in contact with Hulagu also. He was a Shi'i, and that's why the people of Ahl Sunnah should never trust Shi'i people. He was in contact with Hulagu. At the same time, he was giving advice to Musta'sim the Khalif. And under his advice, the advice of Ibn al-Alqami, when the letters of Hulagu reached Musta'sim saying, give up Baghdad, otherwise we're going to cause terror in Baghdad like we did to all the other Muslim lands, what did Ibn al-Alqami advise him? He said to Musta'sim, reduce your army. The opposite advice that he needed. And so Musta'sim, he listened to him. There was a governor who was also in contact with Hulagu. His name was Badr al-Din, and he was the governor of Mosul, which is in Iraq. And Hulagu, he asked Badr al-Din to assist him with weapons. So he was getting letters from Hulagu saying, I want some weapons. And Musta'sim also sent a letter to Badr al-Din. You know what he asked for? He asked for dancing girls and singing girls. And so look at the difference. One is asking for weapons, the enemy of Islam, and the other is asking for dancing girls and singing girls. And Badr al-Din, he said, look at these two letters. Look at these two messengers. Today, cry for Islam and the people of Islam. Because this is what this man was about, this Khalif. Now Baghdad, it had a population, it was one of the shining examples of an Islamic city. It had a population of more than 1 million. But despite this, there was only 10,000 people left to guard Baghdad. The capacity of soldiers was much more, but the soldiers, many of the soldiers, they decided that they would stay in the masjids, and they go in the marketplaces, and they stay there and do dhikr, and they make dua to Allah, oh Allah save us from the Tartars, from Hulagu and his people, and they just started making dua, and this is what they did. As some people call this false claim, the Jihad al-Akbar, as they say. And this is what they were doing. The Mongols, and they surrounded the city. And the Arab horsemen, compared to these Mongols, the Mongols, they looked tattered, and they looked ratty, and a ragtag army. And the Arabs, they looked like mountains. They had their armor, and they had their large horses, and they had their fine robes. But as one of the Muslim commanders, he said, كسرونا كسرة عظيمة. They completely and utterly demolished us. When they tried to even hamper their progress into Baghdad, they couldn't, in front of these ragtag Mongol horde. And then this advisor, Ibn al-Alqami, this Rafidi advisor, he said that to the Khalif, you should give up the city without any conditions. Just give up the city and surrender. So Musta'sim, he agreed. And he gathered 700 of his notables and his emirs and his princes and his scholars. He gathered 700 of these people to meet Hulagu. And Hulagu, what did he do? As soon as he saw them, he slaughtered all but 17 of them. They were all slaughtered. This was how he met them. And then Hulagu, he had a meeting with Musta'sim, one by one, face to face. And Hulagu said to him, give me the treasures of Baghdad. All the treasures you have in your palace, give it to me. So then Musta'sim then gave Hulagu gold and precious items and jewels. He gave him a lot of treasures. And then Hulagu said to him, he said, you are the host and I am the guest, so I deserve more. And it was said that when Hulagu said this to him, Musta'sim was shivering and quaking in his knees. He was shivering when he said this. And so Musta'sim then ordered the vaults to be opened, and he opened up huge treasures for Hulagu, and he said, here are the treasures of Baghdad. But Hulagu was not satisfied. He goes, I do not want this. Because Hulagu knew, because Ibn al-Alqami the Rafidi told him about the treasures of Baghdad. He said, I don't want this, I want more than this. So Musta'sim, he ordered the palace floor to be dug. And the palace floor was dug. It says that inside, when they dug it, it was like the size of a large lake, and it was full of blocks of gold bullion.